Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1, The Swipe That Changed Everything. Dolores Washington sat in the cramped waiting room of Chicago's West Side Community Clinic, her phone buzzing like a wasp trapped in a jar. 63 years old, 2 jobs, and a granddaughter who thought she knew everything. The screen lit up again. Another message from someone named Marcus, then Trevor, then Antonio. Her hand shook as she opened the app she'd never seen before. A profile photo stared back at her, her own face smiling in that yellow dress from Easter, the one that made her look 20 years younger. Below it, words she never wrote. Classy lady seeking genuine connection. Love jazz, Sunday dinners, and real conversation. Her mouth went dry. The notification count read 47. 47 men wanted to talk to her. Her chest tightened. She looked up at the fluorescent lights, then back at the screen. Who did this? But deep down, she already knew. Only one person had access to her photos and the audacity to meddle in her life like this. The nurse called her name, but Dolores couldn't move. Her fingers scrolled through profile after profile. Some men looked decent, some looked desperate. One looked like her late husband, Jerome, and that made her stomach flip. She hadn't dated since Jerome passed 11 years ago. Hadn't even thought about it. The loneliness was just something she carried like her work apron or her house keys. She raised 3 daughters alone after Jerome died. Worked doubles at the hospital cafeteria and weekends at the church daycare. Romance was a luxury for women who had time, women who hadn't spent decades surviving. But here was her face, out in the world, attached to words that made her sound available, open, ready. The nurse called again, louder this time. Dolores stood up, legs stiff, and walked toward the examination room. She'd deal with her granddaughter later. Right now, she needed to figure out how to delete this app before anyone from church saw it. That evening, Dolores sat across from her granddaughter, Amara, at the kitchen table in their small apartment on South Kedzie Avenue. The table was old, scarred with decades of family meals. And between them sat a bowl of greens neither of them had touched. Amara, 19 and too smart for her own good, had her arms crossed and her chin up. She wore her hair in long braids that swayed when she moved, and her eyes held that same fire Dolores recognized from her own youth. "You put me on a dating app," Dolores said, her voice low and controlled. Amara didn't flinch. "Yeah, Grandma, I did." Dolores set her phone down on the table between them. "You had no right." Amara leaned forward. "You have no life. You work, you sleep, you go to church, and you pretend you're fine, but you're not fine. You're lonely." The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Dolores wanted to deny it, but the truth was sharp and real. Amara softened just a little. "Grandma, you raised me. You raised my mama before she messed up and left. You've given everything to everybody else. When's it your turn?" Dolores looked away, out the window where the streetlights had just flickered on. The neighborhood was alive with evening noise. Kids playing, someone's radio too loud, the distant wail of a siren. She thought about all the years she'd spent making sure everyone else was okay, feeding people, holding people, praying for people. And at the end of every day, she went to bed alone. "I didn't ask for this," Dolores whispered. Amara reached across the table and grabbed her grandmother's hand. "I know, but maybe you need it anyway." Dolores pulled her hand back. "Delete it." Amara shook her head. "Not yet. Just look at the messages. Just one. Please." Dolores stared at the phone. 47 men, 47 possibilities, 47 chances to be hurt, disappointed, or worse. But also, maybe one chance to feel something again. Later that night, Dolores couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of Amara moving around in the next room. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people. But it was theirs. She worked herself to the bone to keep it. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark, but she could feel it there like a presence. Finally, she gave any answers. She picked it up, opened the app, and scrolled through the messages. Most were generic. "Hey, beautiful. You look amazing." But one stood out. It was from a man named Colin Hargrove. His profile showed a white man with silver hair, kind eyes, and a smile that looked genuine. His message was simple. "I read your profile and thought, this woman sounds like someone I'd like to know. Not because of how you look, though you're lovely, but because you said you love real conversation. That's rare. If you're open to it, I'd like to take you to coffee. No pressure, just 2 people talking." Dolores read it 3 times. Then she closed the app, set the phone down, and stared at the ceiling again. But this time, something inside her chest felt different, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Chapter 2, The Past. Dolores woke up the next morning to the smell of burnt toast and Amara's off-key singing drifting from the kitchen. Sunlight cut through the thin curtains, painting stripes across the bedroom floor. She rolled over, her body aching from years of standing on hard cafeteria floors, and grabbed her phone. Colin's message was still there. She hadn't imagined it. For a moment, she allowed herself to picture what coffee with a stranger might look like. Would they sit in one of those fancy downtown cafes where everything costs $8? Would he be disappointed when he saw her in person, older and more tired than her photos? Would he expect things she wasn't ready to give? The thought swirled until Amara knocked on her door. "Grandma, you up? I made breakfast." Dolores pulled herself out of bed, wrapped her robe around her, and walked into the kitchen where Amara had set out plates of scrambled eggs and blackened toast. The girl tried, bless her heart, but cooking was not her gift. They ate in comfortable silence for a while before Amara spoke. "So, did you look at the messages?" Dolores kept her eyes on her plate. "I looked." Amara's face lit up like Christmas morning. And Dolores sighed. "There was one that seemed decent." Amara nearly dropped her fork. "Grandma, that's amazing. Which one?" Dolores hesitated, then pulled up Colin's profile. Amara studied the screen, her expression shifting from excitement to something more cautious. "He's white," she said. Not as a judgment, just a fact. Dolores nodded. "I noticed." Amara handed the phone back. "You okay with that?" Dolores thought about it. Chicago was still a segregated city in so many ways. Her neighborhood, her church, her whole world was black. Dating outside that world felt like stepping into unfamiliar territory. But Jerome used to tell her that love didn't ask permission, didn't check boxes, didn't care about what other people thought. "I don't know yet," Dolores admitted, "but I'm tired of being scared of everything." After breakfast, Dolores got ready for her shift at the hospital. She worked in the cafeteria, serving food to doctors, nurses, visitors, and patients who could walk. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and steady mattered when you had a granddaughter to raise. As she rode the bus downtown, she thought about Jerome. They'd met when she was 17, married at 19, and built a life that felt solid until a heart attack took him at 52. He'd been a mechanic, strong and gentle, with hands that could fix anything except his own body. After he died, Dolores had thrown herself into survival mode. There was no time to grieve properly, no space to fall apart. She had 3 daughters to feed, and later, when her middle daughter disappeared into addiction and bad choices, a grandbaby to raise. Romance had died with Jerome, buried in the same plot at Burr Oak Cemetery. But lately, the loneliness had teeth. It bit her when she came home to an empty apartment after Amar stayed out late with friends. It bit her when she watched couples at church hold hands during prayer. It bit her when she lay in bed at night and realized she hadn't been touched with affection in over a decade. The bus jerked to a stop, and Dolores stepped off into the cold Chicago morning. The hospital loomed ahead, all glass and concrete, and she walked through the employee entrance like she had 1,000 times before. In the locker room, she changed into her uniform and tied her hair back. Her co-worker, Sheila, was already there, a heavy-set woman with a gap-toothed smile and a laugh that could fill a room. "Girl, why you looking all distracted?" Sheila asked. Dolores hesitated, then told her about the dating app. Sheila's eyes went wide. Then she burst out laughing. "Your grandbaby did what? Oh, that child got nerve. But you know what? Good. You need to get out there." Dolores shook her head. "I'm too old for this, Sheila." Sheila grabbed her by the shoulders. "Listen to me. You are 63, not 93. You still got good knees, good sense, and good looks. Jerome, God rest him, would want you to be happy. And happiness don't got an expiration date." The words settled into Dolores like seeds in soil. Maybe Sheila was right. Maybe it was okay to want something for herself. That night, after her shift, Dolores sat on the bus and pulled out her phone. She stared at Colin's message for a long time, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she typed, "Coffee sounds nice. When are you free?" She hit send before fear could stop her. The bus rolled through the city, past neighborhoods she'd known her whole life, and Dolores felt something shift inside her. She was terrified, but she was also awake in a way she hadn't been in years. Chapter 3, The First Meeting. Colin suggested a coffee shop in Hyde Park, a neighborhood Dolores knew but didn't frequent. It was the kind of place where university students typed on laptops and white people jogged with expensive strollers. She felt out of place the moment she stepped off the bus. The shop, called The Grind, had exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and a chalkboard menu that made her squint. She spotted Colin immediately. He sat near the window, wearing a navy sweater and reading glasses perched on his nose. When he saw her, he stood up, and Dolores noticed he was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of posture that came from confidence, not arrogance. "Dolores?" he asked, smiling. She nodded, suddenly aware of her worn coat and sensible shoes. He pulled out a chair for her. "I'm so glad you came. What can I get you?" She ordered a simple coffee, nothing fancy, and watched as he walked to the counter. He moved like someone comfortable in his skin, and that both intimidated and intrigued her. When he returned with their drinks, they sat in awkward silence for a moment before Colin spoke. "So, tell me about yourself. The real stuff, not the dating profile version." Dolores smiled despite herself. "What do you want to know?" Colin leaned forward. "What makes you happy? What keeps you up at night? What's the last thing that made you laugh so hard you cried?" The question surprised her. Most men, in her limited experience, talked about themselves. Colin seemed genuinely curious. She told him about Amara, about raising her after her daughter fell apart. She told him about working 2 jobs, about her small apartment, about how she hadn't laughed that hard in a long time, but the last time was when Amara tried to braid her own hair and ended up looking like a pineapple. Colin laughed, a deep, warm sound that made her relax. Then he told her about himself. He was a retired high school history teacher, widowed 5 years ago, with 2 grown sons who lived out of state. He'd signed up for the dating app because his sister insisted, much like Amara had insisted for Dolores. They talked for 2 hours. Dolores forgot about the expensive coffee in the unfamiliar neighborhood. She forgot about her doubts and the voice in her head that said she was too old for this. Colin asked about Jerome, and instead of feeling defensive, Dolores found herself sharing memories she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Colin listened without trying to fix anything or compare his grief to hers. When the coffee shop started closing, they walked outside into the cold evening. "Can I see you again?" Colin asked. Dolores looked up at him, this tall white man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, and felt something click into place. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'd like that." didn't try to kiss her or even hug her. He just smiled, told her to text him when she got home safely, and walked in the opposite direction. Dolores stood there for a moment, watching him go, and felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade. She felt seen. On the bus ride home, Dolores replayed the evening in her mind. Colin had asked real questions, not small talk. He'd listened when she spoke, not just waited for his turn. He'd shared his own pain without making it a competition, and he hadn't once made her feel less than. When she walked into the apartment, Amara was waiting on the couch, trying to pretend she wasn't desperate for details. "So?" Amara asked, muting the TV. Dolores took off her coat slowly, deliberately, making her granddaughter wait. "It was nice." Amara jumped up. "Nice? Grandma, come on. I need more than nice." Dolores smiled, a real full smile that made her cheeks hurt. "He's a good man. We're going out again." Amara screamed and hugged her, and Dolores let herself be held, let herself feel the joy radiating off her granddaughter. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something good. But that night, as Dolores lay in bed, doubt crept back in. She thought about what people at church would say if they saw her with a white man. She thought about her daughters, wherever they were, and whether they'd approve. She thought about Jerome and whether moving forward meant leaving him behind. The thoughts tangled together until her phone buzzed. A text from Colin. "Thank you for tonight. You're even more interesting than your profile suggested. Sleep well." Dolores read it 3 times, then typed back, "Thank you for listening. Good night." She set the phone down and closed her eyes. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Possibility. For the first time in years, Dolores Washington let herself believe that her story wasn't over. That maybe, just maybe, the best parts was still ahead. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, and for once, the loneliness didn't bite. Chapter 4, The Church Ladies Talk. Sunday morning hit Dolores like a wave. She woke up with Colin on her mind, but reality crashed in the moment she stepped into Greater Hope Baptist Church. The building sat on the corner of Ashland and 79th, a brick fortress that had weathered decades of neighborhood change. Inside, the sanctuary smelled like lemon polish and old hymnals. Dolores slid into her usual pew, 3rd row from the front, and immediately felt the eyes. Sister Marilyn, 80 years old with a mouth faster than lightning, leaned over from the row behind. "Dolores, baby, you look different. Something going on?" Dolores smoothed her skirt. "Just a good night's sleep, Sister Marilyn." But the older woman's eyes narrowed like she could smell secrets. Amara sat beside her grandmother, dressed in a modest blue dress, her braids pulled back. She squeezed Dolores' hand, a silent reminder that whatever happened, they were in it together. The choir started singing, and Dolores tried to focus on worship, but her mind kept drifting to Colin's text messages. They'd been talking every day since coffee. Long conversations about everything and nothing. He made her laugh. He made her think. He made her feel alive. After service, the church ladies gathered in the fellowship hall for their usual post-worship gossip session, disguised as fellowship. Dolores tried to slip out, but Sister Marilyn caught her arm. "Come sit with us, baby. We haven't seen you in weeks." It was a lie. Dolores had been there every Sunday, but these women operated on guilt and obligation, so she sat. The table was full. Sister Marilyn, Mother Jenkins, who claimed to be 90 but was probably 70, Sister Roxanne with her perfectly pressed suit, and 3 others whose names Dolores always mixed up. They talked about the sermon, the new choir director, and someone's daughter who was pregnant again by another no-good man. Then Sister Roxanne turned to Dolores. "So, Dolores, when you gonna start dating again? You too young to be by yourself." The question landed like a bomb. Dolores felt her face heat up. "I'm fine, Sister Roxanne." Mother Jenkins snorted. "Fine means lonely. Don't think we don't see you sitting alone in that pew. Even Jesus said it's not good for man to be alone." Dolores opened her mouth to respond, but Sister Marilyn cut in. Leave her be. Dolores got standards. She ain't about to date just anybody. The words were meant to be supportive, but they carried weight. Standards meant staying within certain lines, dating the right kind of man, the right color, the right background. Dolores thought about Colin and felt a knot form in her stomach. Before she could stop herself, the words came out. Actually, I've been seeing someone. The table went silent. 5 pairs of eyes locked onto her like heat-seeking missiles. Sister Roxanne leaned forward. Seeing someone? Who? Dolores swallowed hard. His name is Colin. He's a retired teacher. A good man. Mother Jenkins smiled. Well, praise the Lord. Where'd you meet him? He go to church? Dolores hesitated. We met online, and he goes to a church in Hyde Park. The energy shifted. Sister Marilyn's smile tightened. Hyde Park? What church? Dolores knew where this was going. A Presbyterian church. More silence. Then Sister Roxanne said what they were all thinking. Is he black? The question hung in the air like smoke. Dolores felt her pulse quicken. She could lie, she could deflect, but something in her refused to hide. No, she said quietly. He's white. The table erupted, not with yelling, but with looks. Disappointed looks, concerned looks, looks that said she crossed the line. Sister Marilyn shook her head. Oh, Dolores, baby, you know how that looks. Mother Jenkins added, there's plenty of good black men out there. You don't need to go outside. Sister Roxanne just stared, her lips pressed into a thin line. Dolores felt anger rising in her chest. He's a good man, that's what matters. Sister Marilyn softened her voice. I'm sure he is, baby. But people talk. And you got Amara to think about. What's she gonna think seeing her grandmother with a white man? Dolores stood up, her chair scraping against the linoleum floor. Amara's the one who set up the profile. She wants me to be happy. Maybe y'all should want that too. She walked out before anyone could respond. Amara found her in the parking lot, leaning against the car, trying to steady her breathing. Grandma, you okay? Dolores wiped her eyes. I'm fine. Amara unlocked the car. I heard what happened. Sister Marilyn got a big mouth. Dolores slid into the passenger seat. They think I'm making a mistake. Amara started the engine. Do you think you're making a mistake? Dolores looked out the window at the church, at the building that had been her second home for decades. No, but I'm scared of what it means. Amara pulled out of the parking lot. It means you're choosing yourself for once. And if they can't handle that, that's their problem. They drove in silence through the south side, past boarded up buildings and murals painted on brick walls. Dolores thought about the church ladies, about their concern wrapped in judgment. They weren't bad people. They were just stuck in old ways, old fears. But Dolores was tired of letting fear make her decisions. That night, Colin called. Hey, how was your Sunday? Dolores told him about the church, about the questions, about the judgment. She waited for him to get defensive or angry. Instead, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry that happened. I know this isn't easy for you. If you want to slow down or stop, I'll understand. His kindness made her chest ache. I don't want to stop, she said, but I need you to know it's complicated. Colin's voice was steady. Life is complicated, but you're worth the complication. They talked for another hour, and by the time they hung up, Dolores felt lighter. She walked into the living room where Amara was watching TV. Grandma, you smiling again? Dolores sat beside her. Yeah, baby, I am. Amara rested her head on her grandmother's shoulder. Good, you deserve to smile. Dolores kissed the top of her granddaughter's head and realized something important. She'd spent her whole life worrying about what other people thought. Maybe it was time to worry about what she thought, what she wanted, what she deserved. And right now she wanted to see where this thing with Colin could go. Chapter 5, The First Real Date. Colin picked Dolores up on a Friday evening in a silver Honda Accord that looked like it had been washed that afternoon. She'd spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on a burgundy blouse and black slacks. Amara had helped with her makeup, applying just enough to make her feel confident without looking like she was trying too hard. When the doorbell rang, Dolores felt her stomach flip. Amara answered the door, sizing Colin up with the protective intensity of a bodyguard. "You must be Colin," she said, arms crossed. Colin extended his hand. "And you must be Amara. Your grandmother talks about you constantly." Amara shook his hand but didn't smile. "She better. I'm all she's got." Colin nodded seriously. "Then she's very lucky." Something in Amara's posture softened. "Where are you taking her?" Colin told her about a restaurant in Bronzeville, a black neighborhood with history and soul. Amara looked impressed despite herself. "All right, have her back by, Liv." Dolores rolled her eyes. "I'm 63, not 16, Amara grinned. "Exactly. You need more sleep than a teenager." The restaurant was called Pearl's Place, a cozy spot with dim lighting, exposed brick, and live jazz playing in the corner. Dolores felt herself relax the moment they walked in. This was her world. Colin had done his homework. They were seated near the stage, and Colin pulled out her chair. "I asked around for the best spot in Bronzeville," he said. "3 people mentioned this place." Dolores looked around at the other diners, mostly black couples and families, and wondered what they thought seeing her with Colin. But when the waiter came over, a young black man with locks and a warm smile, he treated them like any other couple. "Welcome to Pearl's. Can I start you a drink?" they ordered, and Dolores began to breathe easier. Colin wasn't trying to take her somewhere fancy and white. He was meeting her where she was. As they ate, Colin asked about her work, her life, her dreams. "What would you do if money wasn't an issue?" he asked. Dolores paused, fork halfway to her mouth. No one had ever asked her that. "I'd open a daycare," she said slowly. "A real one, not just watching kids in a church basement. Somewhere safe where working moms could leave their babies and not worry." Colin's eyes lit up. "That's beautiful. Why a daycare?" Dolores thought about all the years she'd spent struggling to find good childcare for her daughters, then for Amara. "Because I know what it's like to work 2 jobs and pray nothing happens to your kids while you're gone. I want to be the place that makes that easier." Colin reached across the table and took her hand. "You have a good heart, Dolores." She looked down at their hands, his pale skin against her darker fingers, and felt a surge of emotion. "I'm scared," she admitted. Colin squeezed gently. "Of what?" She met his eyes. "Of this? Of people judging, of getting hurt, of being happy and having it taken away." Colin nodded. "I'm scared too. I lost my wife to cancer. Watched her suffer for 2 years. After she died, I told myself I'd never risk that kind of pain again. But then I met you, and I realized being alone hurts too. Just differently." His honesty broke something open in her. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she whispered. Colin smiled. "That's okay. We'll figure it out together." The jazz band started playing a slow song, and couples moved to the small dance floor. Colin stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me." Dolores hesitated. She hadn't danced since Jerome, but something in Colin's face, patient and hopeful, made her say yes. They moved onto the floor, and he pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They swayed to the music, and Dolores let herself relax into his arms. He smelled like cedar and something citrus. That he led with confidence but not dominance. Around them, other couples danced, and Dolores realized no one was staring. No one cared. They were just 2 people enjoying a moment. "You're a good dancer," Colin murmured. Dolores smiled against his chest. "My husband taught me. He said a man who can't dance isn't worth keeping." Colin chuckled. "Smart man." They danced through 2 songs, and by the end, Dolores felt something shift. Maybe this could work. Maybe she didn't have to choose between honoring Jerome's memory and building something new. Maybe both could be true. On the drive home, they talked easily, the conversation flowing like water. Colin told her about his sons, about teaching history to kids who didn't think the past mattered. Dolores told him about Amara's dreams of going to college, about how she was saving every penny to help make that happen. When they pulled up to her apartment building, Colin walked her to the door. "I had a really good time tonight," he said. Dolores nodded. "Me too." They stood there in the dim hallway light, and Dolores wondered if he'd try to kiss her. Part of her wanted him to. Part of her was terrified. Colin seemed to sense her hesitation. "Good night, Dolores," he said softly and kissed her forehead. Then he turned and walked back to his car. Dolores stood there, touching the spot where his lips had been, feeling like a teenager. When she walked inside, Amara was waiting up. "So?" Dolores kicked off her shoes. "So? He's a good man." Amara grinned. "I knew it. He looked at you like you hung the moon." Dolores went to bed that night with a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt in years. The fear was still there, lurking in the corners, but so was something else. Joy. Chapter 6. The cracks begin to show. 3 weeks into dating Colin, Dolores noticed the whispers. At church, in the grocery store, even at work, people looked at her differently. Sheila had been supportive, even excited, but others weren't so kind. One morning, as Dolores refilled the salad bar at the hospital cafeteria, a co-worker named Patricia cornered her by the walk-in freezer. Patricia was a thin woman with a sharp face and sharper opinions. "So, you really dating a white man?" she asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Dolores kept working, scooping lettuce into the metal container. "I am." Patricia shook her head. "Girl, after everything our people been through, you couldn't find a good black man." Dolores set down the scoop and turned to face her. "I wasn't looking for any man, Patricia. He found me, and he treats me well. That's what matters." Patricia sucked her teeth. "That's what they all say. Then he'd get comfortable and start showing his true colors. Probably got Confederate flags in his basement." Dolores felt anger flare. "You don't know him." Patricia leaned in close. "And you don't know him either. Not really, just wait." She walked away, leaving Dolores standing there, cold air from the freezer seeping into her bones. That afternoon, Dolores called Colin from her break. "Hey, you okay? You sound off," he said immediately. She told him about Patricia, about the judgment that seemed to follow her everywhere now. Colin was quiet for a moment. "Dolores, I hate that you're dealing with this because of me. Maybe we should..." She cut him off. "Don't you dare say we should stop seeing each other. I'm not letting other people's ignorance make my decisions." Colin's relief was audible. "Okay, but I want you to know I understand how hard this is. I've gotten some looks too." Dolores frowned. "What do you mean?" Colin sighed. "My son called yesterday. He heard through the grapevine that I'm seeing someone. When I told him about you, there was this long silence. Then he asked if I was sure I knew what I was doing, like dating you was some kind of risk assessment." Dolores felt her chest tighten. "What did you say?" Colin's voice was firm. "I told him I'm a grown man who doesn't need his permission, and that you're the best thing that's happened to me in years." The words made Dolores want to cry. "This is harder than I thought it would be," she admitted. Colin's voice was gentle. "I know, but you're worth it. We're worth it." They talked for the rest of her break, and by the time she went back to work, Dolores felt steadier, but the doubt had taken root. That evening, she and Amara were washing dishes when the younger woman spoke up. "Grandma, how serious is this thing with Colin?" Dolores handed her a plate to dry. "Why are you asking you to?" Amara hesitated. "Because I heard some girls at school talking. One of them goes to our church. She said her mama said you're betraying the community or something." Dolores stopped washing, suds dripping from her hands. "And what do you think?" Amara met her eyes. "I think those people need to mind their business, but I also think you need to be ready for this to get worse before it gets better." The wisdom in her granddaughter's voice made Dolores realize how much Amara had grown up. "I know, baby. I'm trying." Amara dried another plate. Colin makes you happy? Dolores nodded. He does. Amara smiled, then forget everybody else. The following Sunday, Dolores walked into church with her head high. She thought about skipping, about avoiding the judgment, but she refused to hide. She sat in her usual pew, Amara beside her, and tried to focus on the service. But halfway through, Pastor Williams started preaching about staying rooted in community, about the importance of keeping tradition strong. His eyes found hers in the congregation, and Dolores felt the message was aimed directly at her. After service, Pastor Williams asked to speak with her in his office. Dolores sent Amara to wait in the car and followed him down the narrow hallway lined with photos of past church leaders. His office was small, cluttered with books and papers, a crucifix hanging on the wall. "Sister Dolores, sit down," he said kindly. She sat. Pastor Williams was in his 50s, a good man who genuinely cared about his congregation. "I've been hearing some talk," he began carefully, "about you seeing someone outside the church, outside the community." Dolores folded her hands in her lap. "His name is Colin, Pastor. He's a good man." Pastor Williams nodded. "I'm sure he is, but I'm concerned about the message it sends." Dolores felt her patience thinning. "What message, Pastor? That I deserve happiness? That love doesn't have a color?" He raised his hands. "I'm not saying you can't date who you want. I'm saying you have a responsibility to this community. You've been a pillar here for decades. People look up to you, and when they see you with a white man, it confuses them. It hurts them." Dolores stood up, her voice shaking. "What hurts me is that after 63 years of doing everything right, of sacrificing everything for everyone else, y'all still think you have a say in who I love. Colin treats me with respect. He listens to me, he makes me feel valued, and I won't apologize for that." Pastor Williams looked pained. "Dolores, I'm just trying to protect you." She shook her head. "No, Pastor, you're trying to control me. There's a difference." She walked out of the office, out of the church, and into the parking lot where Amara was waiting. "What happened?" Amara asked as Dolores got in the car. "I think I just burned a bridge," Dolores said quietly. Amara started the engine. "Then we'll build a new one." That night, Colin came over for the first time. Amara had made herself scarce, claiming she had a study group, though Dolores suspected she was giving them space. Colin brought flowers, bright yellow sunflowers that made the apartment feel cheerier. They sat on the worn couch, close but not touching, and Dolores told him everything about Patricia, about Pastor Williams, about the weight of judgment pressing down on her from all sides. Colin listened without interrupting, his hand finding hers halfway through. When she finished, he said, "Dolores, I need to ask you something. Do you want to keep doing this? Because I'll understand if it's too much." She looked at him, at this man who had walked into her life unexpectedly and made her feel alive again. "I want to keep doing this," she said firmly, "but I need to know you're in it. Because if this is going to get harder, I can't do it alone." Colin pulled her close. "I'm in it, completely. Whatever comes, we face it together." Dolores rested her head on his shoulder and let herself believe him. The world outside might be hostile, but in this moment, in this small apartment, she felt safe. She felt chosen. And that was enough. Chapter 7. The Family Confrontation. Dolores hadn't spoken to her oldest daughter, Shanice, in almost a year. Their relationship had been strained ever since Shanice moved to Atlanta with a man Dolores didn't trust. But when Shanice called out of the blue on a Tuesday evening, Dolores knew something was wrong. "Mama, we need to talk," Shanice said, her voice tight. Dolores switched the phone to her other ear. "About what?" Shanice paused. "About you dating some white man. Amara told me." Dolores closed her eyes. She'd asked Amara not to say anything yet, but the girl couldn't keep a secret to save her life. "His name is Colin, and yes, I'm seeing him." Shanice's voice rose. "Mama, are you serious right now? After everything Daddy went through, after everything our family went through, you're going to disrespect his memory like that?" Dolores felt anger surge through her. Disrespect? Your father would want me to be happy. Shanice scoffed. Daddy would roll over in his grave if he knew you were dating a white man. Dolores' voice went cold. Don't you dare speak for your father. You barely came to his funeral. The line went silent. Then Shanice hung up. Dolores stood there, phone in hand, shaking with rage and hurt. Amara found her 10 minutes later, sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. Grandma, what happened? Dolores told her about the call. Amara's face twisted with guilt. I'm sorry, I didn't think she'd react like that. Dolores pulled her granddaughter close. It's not your fault, baby. Your mama's been angry at the world for a long time. This just gave her a target. But the word stung anyway. Dolores had always known Jerome's memory was sacred in their family. He'd been a good man, a strong man, the kind of father who showed up even when it was hard. But Jerome had also told her during one of their late-night talks years ago that if anything happened to him, he wanted her to live. Not just survive, but live. She wished she could remind Shanisa that, but her daughter had never been good at listening. That night, Colin called and Dolores told him about Shanice. Maybe I should meet your family, he suggested. Show them I'm not some villain. Dolores laughed bitterly. That might make it worse. But Colin was insistent. Dolores, if we're serious about this, they need to see who I am, not who they think I am. The following Sunday, Dolores invited Amar's father, Marcus, over for dinner. Marcus was Dolores' youngest daughter's ex-boyfriend, a decent man who'd stuck around even after Dolores' daughter disappeared. He saw Amara every other weekend and sent money when he could. Dolores respected him for that. She didn't tell Marcus about Colin, but Amara did, and Marcus showed up with questions. Miss Dolores, Amara told me you're dating somebody, he said as they sat down to eat. Dolores passed him the mashed potatoes. I am. Marcus exchanged a look with Amara. She also said he's white. Dolores set down her fork. He is. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. I ain't gonna judge you, Miss Dolores. You raised my daughter when her mama couldn't. You've earned the right to do whatever makes you happy. But I gotta ask, do you trust this man? Dolores met his eyes. I do. Marcus nodded slowly. Then that's all that matters. But if he ever hurts you, I need to know. Dolores smiled despite herself. You'll be the first person I call. 2 days later, Colin came over for dinner again. This time, Amara stayed, and the three of them ate together. It was awkward at first, Colin trying too hard to be likable, Amara testing him with random questions about his life, his politics, his intentions. So, what do you think about reparations? Amara asked, stabbing a piece of chicken. Colin didn't hesitate. I think the government has a moral and financial obligation to address the legacy of slavery. It's not about guilt. It's about justice. Amara raised an eyebrow, impressed. Okay, what about the police? Colin sighed. The system's broken, and it disproportionately harms Black communities. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Dolores watched the exchange, proud of Amara for asking hard questions and proud of Colin for answering them honestly. By the end of the night, Amara pulled Dolores aside. He's all right, Grandma. I don't hate him. Dolores laughed. That's high praise coming from you. Amara grinned. Just don't let him mess up. I know people. Dolores hugged her tight. I know you do, baby. But the peace didn't last. A week later, Shanice showed up unannounced. Dolores answered the door to find her oldest daughter standing there, arms crossed, face hard. We need to talk, Shanice said, pushing past her into the apartment. Dolores closed the door, bracing for a fight. Shanice looked around like she was inspecting the place, then turned to her mother. I've been thinking about what you said, about Daddy wanting you to be happy. And you're right, he would. But you know what else he would want? For you to have some self-respect. Dolores' jaw clenched. Excuse me? Shanice stepped closer. You're 63 years old, Mama. You think this white man really loves you, or is he just fetishizing you, using you to feel progressive? Dolores slapped her. The sound cracked through the apartment like a gunshot. Shanice stumbled back, hand on her cheek, eyes wide. Get out, Dolores said, her voice shaking. Get out of my house. Shanice stared at her for a long moment, then turned and left. Dolores stood there, hands still raised, trembling with fury and heartbreak. She'd never hit her children. Never. But Shanice's words had cut too deep. Amara came out of her room, eyes wide. Grandma, what happened? Dolores sank onto the couch. I don't know, baby. I don't know. Chapter 8. The breaking point. The slap haunted Dolores for days. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. Sheila noticed and pulled her aside during their break. Girl, you look like death. What's going on? Dolores told her everything. Shanice's visit, the accusation, the slap. Sheila listened, then shook her head. Your daughter was wrong, but so were you. Y'all both hurting, and hurt people hurt people. Dolores wiped her eyes. I don't know how to fix this. Sheila squeezed her hand. You start by forgiving yourself, then you figure out the rest. That night, Dolores called Shanice. The phone rang 4 times before her daughter answered. What? Shanice's voice was cold. Dolores took a breath. I'm sorry I hit you. That was wrong. But you were wrong too. You don't get to question my love life or my choices. I'm still your mother, and I deserve respect. Shanice was quiet for a long time. I'm scared, Mama, she finally whispered. Scared of what? Dolores asked. Scared of losing you? Scared that you're going to choose him over us? Dolores felt her heart crack open. Baby, I'm not choosing anyone over you. I'm just choosing to live my life. Can't you understand that? Shanice sniffled. I'm trying, I really am, but it's hard. They talked for an hour, and while nothing was resolved, it was a start. The next day, Colin invited Dolores to meet his sons. She was terrified. They decided to meet at a restaurant in Evanston, neutral territory. Colin's sons, Brandon and Kyle, were in their 30s, both successful and polished. They shook Dolores' hand politely, but didn't smile. The dinner was tense. Brandon asked about her work, her family, her life. Kyle barely spoke, just watched her with suspicious eyes. Halfway through the meal, Brandon set down his fork. Ms. Washington, can I be honest with you? Dolores nodded. Our dad's been through a lot. Losing our mom nearly destroyed him. We're just worried he's rushing into something. Dolores met his gaze. I'm not rushing anything. I care about your father, and I'm not trying to replace your mother. Kyle finally spoke. No offense, but you two come from very different worlds. How's that supposed to work? Dolores felt anger flicker. Your father and I have been navigating those differences just fine. Maybe you should trust him to make his own choice. The table went silent. Colin reached for Dolores' hand under the table, squeezing gently. Boys, I love you both, but Dolores is important to me. I need you to respect that. Brandon and Kyle exchanged looks, then nodded reluctantly. The rest of the dinner was awkward but civil. On the drive home, Dolores was quiet. Colin finally asked, What are you thinking? She looked out the window. I'm thinking this is exhausting, constantly defending our relationship to everyone. Your kids, my kids, the church, my coworkers. When does it get easier? Colin pulled over into a parking lot and turned to face her. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is just what it costs to be with someone you love who doesn't fit into everyone else's boxes. Dolores felt tears prick her eyes. Is it worth it? Colin cupped her face. You're worth it. But I need to know, are you in this? Really in this? Because if you're not, tell me now. Dolores looked into his eyes and saw fear, hope, and love all tangled together. She thought about Jerome, about the life they'd built, about the promise she'd made at his funeral to honor his memory. But honoring Jerome didn't mean dying with him. It meant living fully, the way he'd always wanted her to. I'm in this, she she whispered. Colin kissed her then, deep and real, and Dolores felt something inside her let go. She was choosing this, choosing him, choosing herself. But the universe had other plans. 2 days later, Dolores got a call from a number she didn't recognize. "Is this Dolores Washington?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" The woman hesitated. "My name is Linda. I'm Colin's ex-wife." Dolores felt the ground shift beneath her. "Excuse me?" Linda rushed on. "I know this is weird, but I need to talk to you about Colin. There's some things you should know." Dolores' heart pounded. "What things?" Linda sighed. "Can we meet in person? I promise I'm not trying to cause drama. I just think you deserve the truth." Dolores agreed to meet her the next day at a coffee shop downtown. She didn't tell Colin. She needed to hear whatever Linda had to say first. When they hung up, Dolores sat on her couch, staring at the wall, wondering what she'd just gotten herself into. Amara came home and found her there. "Grandma, you okay?" Dolores forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby." But she wasn't fine. Not even close. The world had just tilted again, and Dolores didn't know which way was up anymore. That night, Dolores couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What could Colin's ex-wife possibly want to tell her? Was he not actually divorced? Did he have a secret family? Was he dangerous? The questions spiraled until Dolores felt sick. She grabbed her phone and almost called Colin, but stopped herself. She needed to hear Linda out first. At 3 a.m., Dolores got up and made tea. She sat at the kitchen table, the apartment dark and quiet, and thought about how quickly her life had changed. 3 months ago, she was lonely but stable. Now she was in love but terrified. Was this what happiness cost? This constant state of fear and uncertainty? She thought about Jerome again, about how simple their love had been. They'd grown up in the same neighborhood, gone to the same church, understood each other's world. With Colin, everything was complicated. Different worlds, different histories, different everything. But maybe that was okay. Maybe love wasn't supposed to be easy. Maybe it was supposed to challenge you, break you open, make you into someone new. Dolores sipped her tea and watched the sun rise through the kitchen window. Tomorrow she'd meet Linda. Tomorrow she'd learn the truth. And whatever happened, she'd face it head on. Because that's what survivors did. They faced the hard things and kept moving forward. Chapter 9. The truth revealed. Linda Hargrove was nothing like Dolores expected. She was white, mid-50s, with short gray hair and kind eyes. They met at a Starbucks near Michigan Avenue, the morning rush swirling around them. Linda ordered a black coffee and sat down across from Dolores with a nervous smile. "Thank you for meeting me," Linda said. "I know this is strange." Dolores folded her hands on the table. "What do you want to tell me?" Linda took a breath. "First, I want you to know I'm not Colin's ex-wife. I'm his late wife's best friend. Her name was Susan. She died 5 years ago from ovarian cancer." Dolores felt relief and confusion all at once. "Then, why did you say you were his ex?" Linda looked embarrassed. "I panicked. I didn't know how else to get you to meet me. I'm sorry." Dolores leaned back. "Okay, so what do you want?" Linda's expression turned serious. "I want to talk to you about Colin, about who he really is." Dolores' guard went up. "I know who he is." Linda shook her head. "You know the version he's showing you, but there's more." Linda pulled out her phone and showed Dolores a photo. It was Colin and Susan, young and in love, standing in front of a house. They were married for 32 years. She was the love of his life. And when she got sick, Colin became a different person. Dolores studied the photo. Colin looked so happy, so whole. "What do you mean different?" Linda set down her phone. "He became obsessed with saving her, spent every dollar they had on experimental treatments, drove himself into the ground. After she died, he fell into a depression so deep I thought he'd never come out of it. His sons had to move back home to take care of him." Dolores felt her chest tighten. "Why are you telling me this?" Linda met her eyes. "Because you need to know what you're getting into. Colin is a good man, but he's also a man who's still grieving. And sometimes when people are grieving, they latch on to the first person who makes them feel alive again. I'm worried he's doing that with you. Dolores felt anger rise. You don't know anything about our relationship. Linda softened. You're right, I don't. But I love Susan like a sister, and I'd hate to see Colin hurt you because he hasn't fully healed. Dolores stood up. Thank you for your concern, but I can take care of myself. Linda grabbed her hand. Wait, there's one more thing. Dolores sat back down, her patience wearing thin. Linda pulled out another photo, this one of Colin and Susan at what looked like a protest. They were holding signs that read Black Lives Matter. Susan was an activist, Linda explained. She dedicated her life to racial justice. After she died, Colin threw himself into that work too. It's how he processes his grief. I'm not saying his feelings for you aren't real. I'm just saying you need to ask yourself if he sees you as a person or as a project. The words hit Dolores like a punch. She thought about Colin's careful questions, his interest in her life, his eagerness to meet her in Black spaces. Was it genuine or was it guilt? She grabbed her purse and walked out without another word. Linda called after her, but Dolores didn't look back. She walked for blocks, her mind spinning until she found herself at Millennium Park. She sat on a bench and cried, not soft tears, but deep, body-shaking sobs. She'd been a fool again. When she finally calmed down, Dolores called Amara. Baby, I need you to come get me. Amara arrived 30 minutes later, no questions asked. They drove home in silence, Amara glancing at her grandmother with worried eyes. When they got to the apartment, Dolores sat Amara down and told her everything Linda had said. Amara listened, then shook her head. Grandma, that lady sounds bitter. Maybe she's jealous. Dolores wiped her eyes. Or maybe she's right. Maybe Colin's just using me to feel better about himself. Amara grabbed her grandmother's hands. Do you really believe that? After everything you two have shared? Dolores thought about the late night phone calls, the way Colin looked at her, the way he made her feel seen. I don't know what to believe anymore. Amara stood up. Then you need to ask him straight up, no more guessing. Dolores knew she was right. She picked up her phone and called Colin. Hey, can we talk? In person? He heard the strain in her voice. Of course, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Dolores hung up and braced herself for the hardest conversation of her life. Colin arrived looking worried. Dolores met him at the door and led him to the couch. She didn't waste time. I met with someone today, Linda. She said she was Susan's best friend. Colin's face went pale. Linda called you? Dolores nodded. She told me about Susan, about the depression, about your activism. And she suggested that maybe you're with me because I make you feel less guilty about the world, not because you actually love me. Colin looked like he'd been slapped. Dolores, that's not true. She crossed her arms. Then tell me the truth, all of it. Colin ran a hand through his hair. Okay. Yes, after Susan died, I was a mess. And yes, I threw myself into activism because it was the only thing that made me feel useful. But that's not why I'm with you. I'm with you because you're brilliant and funny and strong, and you make me want to be better. Not to ease my guilt, but because you inspire me. Dolores felt tears sting her eyes. How do I know you're not just saying what I want to hear? Colin moved closer, taking her hands. Because I'm terrified right now, terrified you'll walk away. And if this was just about me feeling better, I wouldn't care this much. But I do care. I love you, Dolores. The words hung in the air. Dolores looked into his eyes and saw raw, unfiltered truth. You love me? Colin nodded. I do. I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but it's real. Dolores felt something break open inside her. All the fear, all the doubt, all the walls she'd built. They crumbled. I love you too, she whispered. Colin pulled her into his arms and they held each other like they were the only two people in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Dolores said, but we need to talk about this, about Susan, about your grief, because I can't be your Band-Aid, Colin. I need to be your partner. Colin nodded. You're right, and I promise I'll work on it. I'll go to therapy, I'll do whatever it takes. Dolores smiled through her tears. Okay, then we'll figure this out together. Later that night, after Colin left, Dolores lay in bed feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time she believed they could make it. She believed in them, and that was enough. Chapter 10, The Engagement. 6 months passed. 6 months of navigating family drama, nosy church members, and their own insecurities, but 6 months of love, too. Real deep, complicated love. Colin started therapy, working through his grief with a professional. Dolores set boundaries with her daughters, making it clear she wouldn't tolerate disrespect. Slowly, cautiously, their worlds began to merge. Shanice came around eventually, meeting Colin for coffee and admitting he wasn't as bad as she'd imagined. Brandon and Kyle warmed up too, seeing how happy their father was. Even the church ladies backed off, though Sister Marilyn still gave Dolores disapproving looks. It was a Thursday evening in late April when Colin picked Dolores up for what he said was a simple dinner. She wore a green dress and her favorite earrings, the gold hoops Jerome had given her on their 20th anniversary. Colin was nervous, fidgeting with his car keys, and Dolores laughed. You okay? You look like you're about to pass out. He forced a smile. I'm fine, just excited. They drove to the lakefront, to a small restaurant with outdoor seating overlooking Lake Michigan. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. They ordered food and talked uneasily like they always did. But Colin seemed distracted, checking his watch every few minutes. Finally, Dolores reached across the table. All right, what's going on? Colin took a deep breath. Dolores, these past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. You've challenged me, supported me, and loved me even when it was hard. I know we've faced a lot. Judgment, doubt, fear. But through it all, I've never been more sure of anything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Dolores' breath caught. Colin opened it, revealing a simple gold band with a single diamond. I'm not asking you to forget Jerome. I'm not asking you to choose between your past and your future. I'm just asking you to let me be part of your future. Will you marry me? Dolores stared at the ring, her mind racing. She thought about Jerome, about the life they'd built, but she also thought about Colin, about the life they could build, and she realized she could honor both. Yes, she whispered, yes, I'll marry you. Colin slipped the ring onto her finger and they kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon. Around them, other diners clapped and cheered. Dolores laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. When they got home, Amara was waiting. She took one look at Dolores' hand and screamed, Grandma, oh my God! She hugged them both, jumping up and down like a kid. I knew it. I knew he was going to propose. Dolores pulled back, wiping happy tears. You did? Amara grinned. He called me last week to ask for my blessing. I told him if he hurt you, I'd hunt him down, but also that you deserve to be happy. Dolores hugged her granddaughter tight. I love you, baby. Amara squeezed back. I love you too, and I'm so proud of you. That night, Dolores called Shanice. Her daughter answered on the second ring. Mama, what's wrong? Dolores smiled. Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to tell you something. Colin proposed, and I said yes. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Shanice said, I'm happy for you, Mama. Really? Dolores felt her heart swell. Thank you, baby. That means everything. They talked for an hour. Really talked. And by the end, Dolores felt like maybe, just maybe, her family was healing too. The wedding was small, held in a garden in Lincoln Park on a warm Saturday in June. Dolores wore a cream-colored dress that Amara helped her pick out. Colin wore a navy suit and couldn't stop smiling. Shanice came, bringing her new boyfriend, who seemed decent. Marcus walked Dolores down the aisle, and Amara stood beside her as maid of honor. Colin's sons were there too, along with a handful of close friends. There were no church ladies, no judgmental stares, just people who loved them and wanted them to be happy. The ceremony was short and sweet. They wrote their own vows. Colin promised to love her fully, to honor her past while building their future. Dolores promised to be honest, to stay open, to let him in even when it scared her. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, they kissed as everyone cheered. At the reception held in a small community center nearby, Dolores danced with Colin, then with Amara, then with Marcus. She laughed until her stomach hurt and ate cake until she felt sick. And for the first time in over a decade, she felt completely, utterly happy. Later, as the party wound down, Dolores stepped outside for air. She looked up at the stars and thought about Jerome. "I hope you understand," she whispered to the sky. "I'll always love you, but I'm choosing to live." A breeze rustled the trees, and Dolores took it as a sign. She went back inside, where Colin was talking with Amara, and wrapped her arms around him. He kissed the top of her head. "You good?" She nodded. "I'm better than good. I'm home." That night, as they drove to the small hotel where they'd spend their first night as husband and wife, Dolores reflected on the journey. It hadn't been easy. There had been tears, fights, moments when she wanted to give up. But she hadn't. She'd chosen love over fear, hope over bitterness, life over mere survival. And as she looked at Colin, at this man who'd seen her fully and loved her anyway, Dolores knew she'd made the right choice. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And for the first time in years, Dolores Washington was ready for whatever came next.